Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast. Now, I am Rob without Rich today, but we're taking a look at the fourth Test match. And before we get into that, we just want to say, hey, Happy New Year. Hope you had a great one. Enjoyed Christmas, enjoyed the New Year, enjoyed the break, enjoyed the beers. Maybe didn't enjoy the cricket as much, depending on where you live in the world. Now, we're looking forward to the fourth Test match, the SCG. Yeah, don't remind me. It's 12 days and the Ashes has been and gone. It's the worst 12 days of Christmas I've had since Nasser Hussain was over there captaining the team. But we find ourselves 3-0 down, and what is typically a hard tour for English people. You know, we go on tour to Australia, we have a difficult time. Only once in my lifetime I can remember us ever doing well, and that was 2010 when we scored a bag load of runs. Well, we've not done that before then, we've not done that since then. But it's getting harder. COVID-ravaged tour. There's an outbreak within the various different camps. There's family members testing positive. We've got Travis Head testing positive. Old Mr. Rest and Rotation, Chris Silverwood has tested positive as well. So we wish them all the best. We hope they are safe and they are well. But what is a very difficult tour is getting slightly worse. And one thing I want to start with on this. Now, the agenda, the run sheet for the session is we're going to talk through the COVID impact and how this test is still going on, how the tour's still going on, what's going on at the ground. 5 reasons to be optimistic as an English cricket fan coming into 2022, which can be pretty hard to do, but today we're going to give it a damn well go, and what the two teams are looking like for the game. And you probably guess what my prediction is going to be before we get in there. But I think the first one is, how is this tour still on? Now, Australia cancelled a tour to South Africa about a year ago. England cancelled a tour to South Africa about a year ago. Ireland versus USA has just been called off in the States. Yes, different prestige. But am I right in saying, you know, you talk of all the different cricket that goes on in the world, is there's a COVID outbreak between England and Bangladesh, does that test match still go ahead? And I'm not saying the answer is yes. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just putting it out there, and I think it needs discussion going. Is the only reason this is going ahead because it's mass money and 2 of the big wigs? England, Australia, India. If those 3 are involved, the series probably goes ahead, or if they want it cancelled, it probably gets cancelled. That's been the general consensus of how people have thought about this during the pandemic. And, you know, it almost feels like there's been a little bit of agreed on the big teams and how they act, whereas, you know, Pakistan came and toured without a vaccine, but England won't go and do it because of rest and rotation, and letting them down. New Zealand likewise for some security concern, which still hasn't been, you know, it has been identified, but it's not been spread into the wide mainstream public what was going on. Let the Pakistan public and players and fans, they let them down as well. So maybe a little bit of 2 standards going on, but player welfare and the consideration and consultation which went on with these players before the tour must have gone into details of going, hey, if there is a COVID outbreak, what do we do? What are our triggers for calling off this tour? You know, these are educated people. You've got to think they're not just doing it on the fly, going, oh, you know what, we've got a COVID outbreak, what do we do now? No. There's money tied into broadcasting contracts. That is the number one of what's going on. They got the England team out there based on being able to get the family and other sets of requirements, which, again, we don't know of, and they'll come out in different books further down the road, a couple of years' time, when we look back and go, hey, those COVID years were pretty crazy, eh? But for now, it feels like both teams have signed up to the same hymn sheet, and if COVID's in camp and the teams can put 11 players out on the pitch, then the tour is going to keep going ahead. I think the thing that resonates with me is how hard it must be for these players to consistently be going out there trying to perform when family members are in different bubbles, players are in different bubbles. There's a different bubble for anything. Hey, you want to go and take a dump, you've got to go in the dump bubble, and you win that one for 7 days. Please don't test positive there, because you don't want to be stuck around that. It's going to whiff. So it's just hard. It's a hard tour, and it's made harder by what's going on. It's made harder by the fact that we're 3-0 down. It's made harder by the fact that 2021 was a poor year for English cricket. And we're going to play at the SCG. The last 2 times we played at the SCG, we lost by 281 runs back in 2014. And we lost by an innings on 123 runs. The last time was there in 2018. Mitch Marsh scored 100. Sean Marsh scored 100. Usman Khawaja, hey Usman, welcome back to the test team today. Oh, you scored 171 last time you were there, and we got rolled for 180. Cummins got 4 for, Lyon got 3 for. But can you expect it? I would put our bowling attack today up against that one and say we're better today. That one consisted of Tom Curran, nothing against Tom Curran, fine set of abs, and Mason Crane. I'm saying Ollie Robinson is better than a Tom Curran, and Jack Leach is better than a Mason Crane. There we go, I've said it. 2020 is crazy. But just how odd is it to win at the SCG? You know, we talk about, oh, see at the Gabba, Tim Bain, see at the Gabba. Well, what about see at the SCG, mate? Since 2013 through to 2021, they played 9 tests at the SCG, won 5, lost 4. A batting average of 50.27. They score at 3.78 and over, which is absolutely ridiculous. A bowling average of 31 and a bowling run rate of 2.97. That is very good. The teams that have gone and got draws there, make no mistake about this, the 4 draws, 3 of those, 3 are a very, very good Indian team and a wayward West Indies team. Got a draw there apparently. But they're very good in the home environment, like all teams. India are good in India. Sri Lanka were hugely dominant for a long period of time in Sri Lanka, and England are very good in English conditions, like Australia are good in Australian conditions. It's just what you go up against when you play in different countries around the world. But it is becoming a little bit of a fortress for them. Steve Smith, 7 matches, 751 runs, an average of 75, 3 tons. David Warner, he's got 4 centuries at the SCG. Hey, and guess who's got the 3rd amount of runs in the last decade at this ground? Marnus. He's always there, no ran. 3 test matches, 476 runs, 350s, 1 ton. Oh yeah, Khawaja's 5th on this list as well with a century and a 50 there. And they're just a fine Australian team playing at a venue that generally does quite well for them. Nathan Lyon does okay there. He's got the most amount of wickets in the last 10 years as well. So there might be a bit in it for Jack Leach. But what you've got to look at is Jack Leach versus Nathan Lyon. Who's going to win that contest? Probably the question should be who's going to win the toss and who's going to get the better conditions to bowl in. But generally what we've seen so far, Nathan Lyon, since he got the 400 monkey off his back, has actually been a really, really consistent performer. Really tying up David Malan really, really well. I'm hugely impressed with what he's going to do. But overall, it's a huge uphill battle for this England team. But this England team has shown glimmers, and I'm going to get into these 5 reasons to be optimistic in a second, but we've shown glimpses of just its bounce back ability. Michael Vaughan's team had it back, 2004, 2005, that sort of era. Bounce back ability. Lose a test, go back and win the next one. Lose a test, go back and win the next one. You never out the series, you never count them down. They're a good team. They've got a backbone. They ain't just walking around like a jellyfish and sliding to the ground everywhere. And this England team has got a little bit of that. We lost to India. We got hammered by India. I think it was the first or second test in the summer. The next test match, me and Rich sat here and was talking about it and was saying, I can't see them coming back. And Rich is like, no, they've got to come back. This is what Test cricket's all about. They have got to come back this Test match, and they went and did. Yeah, sure, it's the series that never quite ends, and it's sat at 2-1 with 1 test to play, which might eventually get played out in 3 or 4 years' time. Yeah, I know it's scheduled in, but nothing is certain at the moment. Like me getting a haircut, nothing is for certain. But this series has brought us some good England moments, and I don't think we can just sit there and go everything's bad, because we've had good sessions, we've had consistency with the ball, and we can look at it and go, yeah, we bowled too short, but sometimes those stats are a little bit skewed by the fact that Ben Stokes is the person that's being told to bowl bouncer after bouncer, and Mark Wood is generally bowling a shorter length. Yes, it's been slightly shorter than Australia, but when you look at the two things, you go, they've got guys in their team that average 60. We've got guys in our team, hey, that average 30. If we drop their guy that score averages 60, he's probably going to add another 60 runs on to that drop. And Marnus Lavisham being the luckiest man in Test cricket, I think he's been dropped as many times as he's been caught, which is just a ridiculous thing. So there have been good moments. There's been good spells. Jimmy Anderson's bowled some wonderful spells. Ollie Robinson has bowled some wonderful spells of cricket. Now, we've even had good sessions, even with it, not just with the ball, but with the bat. We had a little bit of Pope and Butler in the first test, but generally it's been Root and Malan who have given us some stability around that 3 and 4 role, because we're 2 down for 7 in 3 overs every single time they go out there. But nothing outside of Root and Malan has even remotely sparked any sort of optimism from this England team at the moment. Not even a backed up Josh Butler trying to single-handedly hang on to save a test match. But this is 2022. Can we win a session? Yes. Can we win a back-to-back session? Well, we're pushing it a little bit, but I feel like this is what it's going to be. Hell, this is 2022. England are going to win a day's cricket at the SCG. I'm calling it now. Hell, we're even going to go and win at the SCG, and it's going to be the miracle, and it's going to be the turnaround for this England team. People are going to make a name for themselves. Hamid's going to go and score runs. It's going to be exceptional. Now, 5 reasons to be optimistic as an England cricket fan going into 2022. And number 1, I think it's the obvious one. We've got Joe Root. And now I'm a big fan of the Fab Four. Yeah, you've got Kohli, who's not been great the last couple of years in Test match cricket. That's fine. People are allowed to have a bit of a downturn. Kane Williamson, who's been exceptional, scores runs for fun, absolutely broken elbow and can hardly hold a bat most of the time. And Steve Smith, who I'm just going to call it, is having a very, very poor series under the radar. But Joe Root is the best player in the world. He scored virtually 1,000 runs more than the next person last year. And he started converting. It's always been Joe Root 50, Joe Root 50, Joe Root 50. Well, now last year we had Joe Root 6 tons. And he's probably wrote it. He's probably updated his Twitter handle at Joe 6 tons for the year. He's a machine. He's at the top of his game. He can win as a session. He can win as a game. He just needs a little bit of support. But I'm calling it now. The final frontier in Joe Root becoming one of the greatest batsmen that England's ever produced. If he's not in that category already, I think he already is he goes and scores big in 2022, starting at the SCG with a big 100. Moving on to number 2. Now, 2021 is a poor year on paper, but sometimes stats, they don't tell the whole story. Now, I need to explain this because we know we lost 9 Test matches. We know we lost to India twice, and we've lost to Australia. But when we toured Sri Lanka at the start of the years, not everyone was there going, oh, you know what, England, just a terrible cricket team, can't bat. Some people said that. Some people said we can't bat. Those people, yeah, they were the cool people that liked the band before the popular. But it was the Indian series where it kind of fell apart. Chennai, we went and won the Test match. Joe Root scored a double ton. We played on some spinning wickets and we didn't do very well. Who would have thought that? You go and play on a spinning wicket and you struggle. This is England we're talking about. We struggle in the back garden playing against a 6-year-old spinning it. But when you add to that the fact that you've got Ashwin bowling at you, one of the greatest off-spinners, if not the greatest off-spinner of all time, and you've got Axar Patel. The man's a machine. 5 Test matches, 30 wickets, 5 fifers. What more can you do? You're in a foreign environment where teams generally don't do very well. Who goes to India and does really well? Nobody around this table is raising their hands because no one goes to India and does well. They're brilliant at home. The spinners are absolutely world class and no one goes over there and plays them very well. Well, England's not unique in doing that. We played India at home. Now, again, we can look at this and go, India, and I'm calling it, are the best cricket team, Test cricket team in the world cross conditions. They've won. They can play anywhere in the world in any conditions. And that's because this is the best seam bowling attack they have ever produced. And it's got depth. Someone goes down, next man comes in. This is high quality, high intensity, and huge ability to take wickets. Because it's the pressure they build with that ball. But then you've got the spin coming on. You've got Ravi Jadeja. I've not even mentioned Jadeja. And you've got Ashwin. It's an incredibly hard team to play against. Irrelevant that you're playing at home and you're in conditions that, hey, we're good in these conditions. Well, you're better in English conditions than most, and your bowlers bowled really well. But your batters struggled against a really high-quality bowling attack that bowls at the stumps and takes wickets. It's just how it is. Oh, what do you do next? Oh, you go to Australia. You go to Australia. Well, only once in my lifetime have we batted well in Australia, and that's okay. But in Australia, they've got a world-class spinner in Nathan Lyon who's been great after that first test and getting 400 wickets. Cummings, who is bowling like the #1 bowler in the world by a long shot. He is incredible. I think CricViz said his spell in the 3rd test at the end of the 2nd day was the most accurate spell on their records. I may be exaggerating, but it was good. And if you've not seen it and you like good, go and watch him do good. Plus that, you've got Josh Hazlewood, who was incredible in the first test match. Then they made changes and they still won. And then Scotty Boland comes in, horses for courses at the MCG and goes and takes 6 for 7. It's absolutely incredible. You take away from this is that we're not that bad. It basically means were just a middle tier team. Australia and India, if Australia didn't get points deducted, would have been in the World Test Championship final. That's fact. India were there and lost to New Zealand. That's fact. England played well against Pakistan and played well against West Indies the year before. That's fact. They did well against Sri Lanka. That's fact. Well, 3 of those teams are in the lower echelon and 2 of them are in the upper echelon. And it seems like there's a big golfing class between the top test tier nations and the ones down below. And we're a floater. We're just floating in the middle. Well, that's a reason to be optimistic. Number 3. This may well be the last year you get to see Jimmy Anderson steaming in, 40 years old, bowling for England. And we all know how special and how skillful he is, but the rest in rotation policy will either add length to his time or it's going to decrease it, because he's like, mate, come on. Come on, we can be better than this. You can use me more. Did you know how many test wickets I've got and you're resting me? What are you talking about? And in my eyes, he is the most skilled English test bowler I've ever seen. Now, I've been watching test cricket since 1990, around there. When I was 5, I started watching it with Dad. Now, I did see the back end of the Yunus Akram. I saw a lot of the Ambrose Walsh and McGrath sort of era. But Jimmy's something different. He's a swing bowler. A lot of those guys nipped it around. Yunus Akram, yeah, I know, heavy swing bowlers, absolutely incredible. But like I said, I saw the back end of kind of their career and didn't kind of see them at the pomp like I've seen Jimmy in the pomp. And out of what I've seen, he's the GOAT. Both ways. No change of action, bro. And it's the longevity. Who bowls until they're 40 and gets better past the age of 30? And it's not just that. You go, oh, well, he doesn't bowl very well in Australia, Bobby. Well, I'll tell you, you're talking rubbish. Since 2009, that's many years now. We're in 2022. 62 wickets at 29. And that's not bad when you're in your 30s. He's, you know, when I turned 30, I had a bad knee, a glass bag, a concussion that's still around now. But this man's just made of steel. I was made of glass. He absolutely runs rings around me. And I was bowling at 60 mile an hour. It just feels that every ball, if you're an English cricket fan, if you're a world cricket fan, if you're a purist, every ball, every single Jimmy Anderson spell where he gets it on that piece of string should be savoured. The outswinger, the in-swinger to trap them in front. Go, record it on VHS for posterity. And on a warm summer's night in a couple of years' time with your mates around, you can sit there and go, hey, I was there, I watched Jimmy Anderson's final year, and that man took 700 test wickets. Number 4, this might be far-fetched. England's openers. Now, you are going to have to hear me out on this, because we've had a poor year for openers. I think it was 13 or 14 ducks on the year. We've used several openers so far. But in 2020, things were looking all right. Rory Burns was coming off a ton in the 2019 Ashes, and we thought, oh, you know what, he's a bit crab-like, but he scores runs. That's a good thing to do. Go score runs, Rory. And Dom Sibley was a Wisden Cricketer of the Year. That's only like a year ago. Now, Burns is 32 test matches down, averages around 30. He's averaged less than 30 the last 2 calendar years. And unless of a COVID outbreak or 1,000 runs before May, chances are we're not going to see him in the future. Hamid has probably 2 test matches remaining to save his test match career. Now it's reinvigorated and he's back in the fold. Did well against India. Did well in the first test here. Looked really good. But I think it's 3 ducks in the last 2 test matches has kind of put him on the radar of this could be it. And I don't want it to be it, because I really like him. I think he scores well. He plays seam bowling well. He's a good cricketer. He's got a lot of gumption to go through what he went through, go back, and come back better. That is quite incredible. And he's sneaky young. He's still a whippersnapper around the ankles. But it's not maybe necessarily the end of his career. But a drop at this certain point in time puts a lot of pressure to go back to county cricket and score runs. But also it might mean several years before you come back into the fold. Either way, it's basically going to mean we need 1 or 2 new openers for the new year. And that is a reason to be optimistic. There we go. We got there in the end. And I love fresh blood. I'm not a vampire, but new players on the scene, brimming with excitement. The first ball, the play in the miss, a rasping cover drive team where you go, ooh, who's this guy? Not seen him, you know, he's pretty all right. And then seeing them getting worked over by someone bowling 150k at the head. Like, it's just amazing prospects on England's radar with opening. And it is hard, because essentially what England have done is gone, you've scored runs in county cricket, we'll play you. You've scored runs in county cricket, we'll play you. And people have been saying that for years, that that's what we should do. Well, we've done that, and it's not quite worked at the moment, but we do have a good-looking conveyor belt. Alex Lees is primed and ready, 39.80 average in the last few years, but he is prone to ducks. I think it's the most ducks in county cricket as an opener in the last 3 years, but was part of the Lions tour. Rob Yates has rose to prominence at Warwickshire. Both played on the Lions tour. Hey, why did that Lions tour end so early? Why didn't they tour with this England party and play at all the different grounds, play state teams, grade teams? Just get games in Australia, man. Jake Libby has been a new road machine, punching out runs and even averaging over 40 away in the last calendar year. Now, that does go under the radar because he averages so highly. He averaged 56 overall, way more at New Road, which is great to bat on, by the way, but 40 away. That's making my ears prick up going, maybe a bit to this Jake Libby. And young Tom Haynes, 1,176 runs at an average of 47 from Sussex, which has produced a hell of a lot of good cricketers over the last few years, and Hassan Azad has been scoring runs for fun at Leicestershire. Now, it will be interesting to see where we go, but there's plenty of options around there. Alex Lees and Rob Yates looks to be the next guys off the conveyor belt because they were part of that Lions team. But the excitement is potentially having an opener that averages more than 30 in the last couple of years. That's something to be optimistic about. Number 5, Ollie Pope is going to break out in 2022 like there's no tomorrow. Okay, now, I know I'm sitting up, I'm all serious now. I know he didn't go big in Australia, but I do feel like he was dropped slightly too soon. The first 2 tests were pretty difficult for everyone. Take the young lad out the firing line, bring in experienced Johnny Bairstow to average 28-30. That's what Johnny Bairstow has done every year since 2016 when he became one of the best players in Test cricket, but we ruined him. First class cricket, Pope, 2,408 runs at an average of 75. That is not a fluke, but he does have massive issues facing spin in Test cricket. In fact, his average against spin in Test cricket is around 20. That is very poor. His average against seam bowling is about 35. That's okay. But not all cricket is made even, and not all cricket years are made even. This year, and I'm going back to it, Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka, India in India, India in England, and then Australia with Nathan Lyon. So that is essentially a lot of high quality spin. That's very difficult to play against. When you look at his spin average in county cricket, he actually does pretty good, except against Simon Harmer, who is the best spinner on the circuit for the last 4 or 5 years. So it's not necessarily, I think, that he's bad against spin. I think it's a case of he hasn't got the confidence or clear game plan of how he approaches quality spin. Because whatever works against lesser spin does work for him, and I think we're going to see that in 2022. And it's not a knock on it, but we're playing South Africa and the West Indies, which is different to playing India and Australia. This is his year, 2022. It's next England's brilliant batsman, and I think this is going to be the year where it really kicks in. Anyway, team news: COVID ravaged England, and rest in rotation. Chris Silverwood is isolated. Adam Hollioake was supposed to join the coaching team. That's been shelved. He's tested positive as well. Pretty gutting for him. He's an exceptional cricket mind by all accounts, and by the way he talks, I like the way he verbalises what he's thinking about this England team and how he would make changes, and I really appreciate that. But the only change that England are really making is Stuart Broad, who has been severely underutilised against David Warner in this series. How poor. First test. I'm rolling back here, but first test against Australia, first ball. Who does David Warner not want to see bowling at him, who gives him nightmares still? Stuart Broad. Sorry, Stuart, you're rested for this one. Oh, yeah, but I've not played cricket for 6 months. Oh, you're still rested, son. That's the change that's coming in. The one thing that I thought they may do is rotate Bairstow. I thought he might be for the chopping block. He's not. He's irregular with being irregular. He didn't play in 2020. 2019, he was kind of in and out. 2021, he's been in and out. He's not averaged over 30 since 2016, with 2 test matches remaining, with 3-0 down. There's 2 trains of thought to look at this. One, you can look at it and go, what do we gain from playing Johnny Bairstow in this game? New experienced head, no scars. Doesn't matter if he does rubbish. You know, we're probably going to move on next year, hopefully. Nothing against Johnny. Like Johnny, great cricketer. Amazing white ball cricketer, particularly. But it's difficult. But then there's the other train of thought where, you know, we've got Dan Lawrence in the squad. Maybe you could him a go. You know, what do we lose by giving him 2 test matches and say, hey, just get some experience, mate. It doesn't actually matter. Or does he fall into that category where you go, oh, you know what? If we give you cricket and it goes badly, then, you know, that's going to be held against you when everyone else has done poor. You might get like games in the summer and you probably won't come to Australia again. So it is a difficult one. One story that really got me, though, on Twitter. And, you know, I've been here going, well, stats do sometimes lie. Zach Crawley has said the numbers don't tell the whole story for averaging 10 across a whole calendar year. Now, excuse me, Zach, but runs divided by wickets, outs, 100, equals average. So when the average says that you average 10.81, correction, 16 innings, 173 runs at an average of 10.81. A heist of 53, 1 duck. That's a very poor year, and I hope he does well. I really do. He looked really exciting in 2020 against Pakistan, but that doesn't make him unique. A lot of these England batsmen look pretty good against Pakistan and West Indies, but playing against India and Australia is a completely different ball game. Just like playing against the New Zealand attack was a different ball game in England. And sorry, I forgot about New Zealand through this whole thing, but you know, he can do good things for England, as Australia will go, wow, he's tall and he hits it hard. Probably don't even sound like that. But last year, he has a poor footwork, really poor footwork. That cover drive off Tim Southee still haunts me now. And his bat's coming through at a funny angle. He may not score a run for the rest of the tour. He may go and score 100. He's that sort of player, and I think England really value the way he goes about playing his cricket, and he's probably got a good mindset for getting on with it. So, fair play to you, mate, but when you average 10 on the year, don't be that guy that says, oh, you know, I was a bit unlucky. I nicked off 15 times. Sorry, Zach. Question is, will England improve this game? My answer is yes, but it can't get much worse at the same time. We don't want the jellyfish analogy where we just wilt away, backboneless over the last couple of test matches. We can't do that. We've been there before. We lost 5-0. We lost 4-0. How this could be 5-0 if the weather doesn't intervene. But don't just simmer and just boil away. Like, we're better than that. We've got a good bowling attack and we've got Joe Root. David Milan's been good. And we've got opportunities. And that's not something to be sniffed at, because there's, you know, 200 professional cricketers in England that will be jumping at the bit to play for England in the Ashes. And there's probably, you know, thousands and thousands of little kids going, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I can remember having a dream when I was about 8 years old. I scored 100 for England in the Ashes. Never happened in real life. Barely happened at club cricket. But, you know, don't wilt the opportunity, because this opportunity to play for England in Australia is special no matter how hard it is actually going to be. Australia do make changes, which is a surprise, but it is COVID related. So Travis Head has been ruled out. Mitch Marsh and Josh English has been called up as cover. Nick Maddison is remaining in Melbourne on standby. But Usman Khawaja got the nod. It'll be his first test match since 2019 in the third Ashes test at Headingley, which England won, and Ben Stokes scored a match-winning century. So, fair play. This is horses for courses, which I think is unusual because they are 3-0 up. But this is Australia. They want the jugular, don't they? They really want to win this test match. They don't want to lose any test matches against England, and they think Khawaja's the man to do it. Josh Hazlewood is still out with a side strain. Pat Cummins has said he'll be back for the 5th test match. So Scotty Boland, well, he is going to keep his spot in the team. And why shouldn't he? Why shouldn't Scott Boland keep his spot in the team? 6 for 7 is pretty incredible. So yeah, that's where we sit. You've got 5 reasons to be optimistic as an England cricket fan going into 2022. The teams are announced. Kicks off tomorrow. I can't wait. And I just hope for a day. If we can get a day, win a day. I just keep saying the word day, but if we win a day, we can win this test match. Because I think that's what they need. They need the belief that they can go back-to-back in a session. That they can even win a session. That someone other than Joe Root can bat a session. Like, if we can do that, we can go on and win this test match. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and thank you so much for listening. If you're on any podcast platforms, you can catch us on YouTube. Likewise, if you're on YouTube, catch us on any podcast platform. We're also on Twitter at Leading Edge Pod. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Until next time.